In 68 AD, the most powerful man on earth ran through the dark with no shoes on. No guards, no servants, no Senate escort, just a 30-year-old man stumbling through back roads outside Rome, hiding his face, listening for horses. 12 hours earlier, he had been emperor. Now the Senate had voted him a specific death: to be stripped naked, locked in a wooden fork, and beaten with rods until he stopped breathing. He couldn't do it. He couldn't face it. So he pressed a blade to his own throat, and his hands shook so badly that a secretary had to help him finish. His last words: "What an artist dies in me." Not "what a ruler," not "what an emperor," an artist. That sentence explains everything about how Rome lost a dynasty that had ruled for 100 years. But it doesn't start with the fire, it starts with money. Most channels won't cover what comes next. This one will. Subscribe. In October of 54 AD, Emperor Claudius ate a plate of mushrooms at dinner. By morning, he was dead. The palace moved fast. Before sunrise, the Praetorian Guard, the only military force inside Rome, marched a 16-year-old boy to their barracks and declared him emperor. His name was Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus. He had not fought a single battle. He had not governed a single province. He had never commanded troops. He was emperor because his mother, Agrippina the Younger, had spent a decade engineering it. She had married Claudius. She had convinced him to adopt Nero over his own biological son, Britannicus. And when the timing was right, she served the mushrooms. At least, that was what Rome whispered. No trial, no evidence presented, just the timing and the result. Nero took the throne. Agrippina stood behind it. And for the first 5 years, something unexpected happened. Rome functioned. Nero's tutor, the Stoic philosopher Seneca, and the Praetorian prefect Burrus essentially ran the government. Taxes were reviewed. Provincial governors were held to account. The Senate was consulted on legislation, something that had become a formality under Claudius. The treasury was healthy, the borders were stable. Nero gave public speeches written by Seneca that emphasized justice and restraint. But behind the rhetoric, there was a problem the public couldn't see. Nero did not care about governing. He had been raised on Greek poetry, music, theatre, and competition. He practiced the lyre for hours. He studied vocal technique. He composed verses and performed them for small audiences of courtiers. None of this was illegal. None of it was unusual for a wealthy Roman, but Nero wasn't wealthy. He was emperor, and the distinction mattered, because the Roman treasury was not the emperor's personal fortune. It was the financial engine of an empire that stretched from Britain to Syria, that paid 300,000 soldiers, that maintained roads and aqueducts and grain shipments across the Mediterranean, and Nero was starting to treat it like a personal account. The spending was still small: banquets, performers, gifts for favorites, but the trajectory was visible to anyone watching. Seneca was watching. Burrus was watching. And so was Agrippina. Agrippina had put Nero on the throne to control him. When she realized she couldn't, she made a threat. She began publicly supporting Britannicus, Claudius's biological son, the boy Nero had displaced. Britannicus was 14. He had a legitimate claim, and Agrippina was signaling to the Senate and the Guard that she had the ability to replace one emperor with another. In February of 55 AD, at a dinner banquet, Britannicus took a drink, convulsed, and collapsed. He was dead within minutes. Nero told the room it was an epileptic seizure. The body was cremated that same night before dawn in the rain. No physician examined the body publicly. No inquiry was held. The ashes were buried without ceremony. Britannicus was 14 years old. The Senate said nothing. The Guard said nothing. Agrippina said nothing, at least not publicly. But the calculus shifted. Nero had demonstrated something that even Agrippina hadn't fully anticipated. He was willing to eliminate threats at the dinner table, in front of witnesses, and dare anyone to object. Agrippina's position changed overnight. She was no longer the power behind the throne. She was a liability, someone who knew too much, who had her own alliances, and who had just seen what her son would do to a blood relative. For the next 4 years, Nero gradually stripped her of influence. Her guard detail was removed. She was relocated from the Imperial palace. Her allies in court were reassigned, but Nero didn't stop there. In 59 AD, Agrippina was invited to a festival at Baiae on the coast near Naples. Nero was affectionate. He embraced her publicly. He gave her a specially designed boat for the journey home. The boat was engineered to collapse at sea. It did, but Agrippina survived. She swam to shore. When Nero received word that his mother was alive, he sent soldiers. They found her in her villa. According to the historian Tacitus, when she saw the swords, she pointed to her abdomen and said, "Strike here. This is where Nero came from." They killed her. Nero told the Senate she had been plotting against him and had taken her own life when the plot was discovered. No one believed it, but no one acted. And that was the pattern that would define the next 9 years. Nero removed a constraint. Rome absorbed the shock, and the absence of consequences encouraged the next removal. His first wife, Octavia, the daughter of Claudius, was exiled on false adultery charges, then executed. Her head was sent to Nero's new wife, Poppaea, as confirmation. Burrus died in 62 AD, possibly poisoned, though the sources aren't certain. He was replaced by Tigellinus, a man whose loyalty to Nero was absolute, and whose interest in governance was non-existent. Seneca, seeing the direction, asked permission to retire. Nero granted it, but kept his estates under surveillance. By 63 AD, every person who had restrained Nero's spending, challenged his judgment, or represented an alternative center of power was either dead, exiled, or silenced. The treasury was now entirely in Nero's hands. And then, in July of 64 AD, Rome caught fire. The fire started near the Circus Maximus, in the shops and stalls packed between the Stadium and the Palatine Hill. It burned for 6 days. Then it reignited and burned for 3 more. When it was over, 10 of Rome's 14 districts had been damaged. 3 were completely destroyed. Hundreds of temples, thousands of homes, entire neighborhoods of the densest city in the ancient world, gone. The scale was staggering, and the question that consumed Rome was immediate. Who started it? The historian Tacitus, writing roughly 50 years later, records 3 theories that circulated at the time. The first, it was an accident. Rome was a city of timber-framed buildings, narrow streets, open-flame cooking, and summer heat. Fires were common. A fire of this scale was unusual, but not impossible. The second, Nero ordered it. He wanted to clear land for a massive building project and used the fire as cover. This was the version that stuck in popular memory. The third, Nero didn't order it, but he did nothing to stop it, and may have interfered with firefighting efforts, because the destruction served his plans. The sources disagree. Tacitus himself doesn't commit to a single version, but here's what matters more than who started the fire: what happened in the weeks after it. Nero did, in fact, open his palaces and gardens to refugees. He organized grain distribution. He reduced the price of corn. He implemented new building codes, wider streets, fire-resistant materials, mandatory courtyards. These were real measures. They addressed real problems, and they were completely overshadowed by what came next. First, the blame. Nero selected a target, the Christians. At the time, Christians were a small, marginal sect in Rome, distinct from the Jewish community, but poorly understood by the general population. They were outsiders. They had no political patrons. They were easy to isolate. Nero arrested members of the community. Trials were held, though the standards of evidence were unclear. Convictions followed quickly. Then came the punishments. According to Tacitus, some were wrapped in animal skins and torn apart by dogs. Others were crucified. Others were coated in pitch and set on fire as human torches to light Nero's gardens at night. The public spectacle was meant to redirect anger away from Nero and toward a visible enemy. It worked, partially. The rumours about Nero's involvement in the fire continued, but the immediate political crisis was contained. The executions achieved their short-term objective, but the fire also created something Nero hadn't planned for: an opportunity. The heart of Rome was now empty, and Nero intended to fill it. What Nero built on the ruins of the fire was not a reconstruction project. It was the Domus Aurea, the Golden House. The scale needs to be understood in physical terms. The complex covered between 100 and 300 acres of central Rome, depending on which ancient source you follow. For comparison, the Roman Forum, the political, religious, and commercial center of the entire empire, occupied roughly 5 acres. Nero's private residence occupied more space than the public heart of Roman civilization. The main building had over 300 rooms. None of them appear to have been bedrooms. The structure was designed for entertaining, display, and spectacle. The walls were covered in gold leaf. Ceilings were fitted with panels of ivory that could slide open to shower guests with flowers and perfume.